Picture an army of 100,000 attempting a river crossing, only for half its soldiers to perish in the water before firing a single shot. The Sultan, whose ambition was to reconquer Hungary, suddenly finds himself trapped on the opposite shore, completely vulnerable to an ambush he failed to anticipate. Artillery fire demolishes their one crossing, wagons filled with riches plunge to the riverbed, and the distinguished standard of the Ottoman Empire disappears into the murky depths of the Tisza River. At Zenta, a single afternoon brought a halt to 3 centuries of Ottoman advances into the European continent. 14 years following the unsuccessful Ottoman siege of Vienna, the Great Turkish War persisted in a state of stalemate, with no decisive victor. The Ottoman Empire was engaged in a multi-front conflict against the Holy Roman Empire, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Venice, and Russia. By 1697, all empires were drained of resources, and the majority of Europeans anticipated another year without a breakthrough. However, new commanders and bold decisions prepared the ground for a definitive confrontation. Sultan Mustafa II, having achieved minor successes at Lugos, Olas, and Sinai, was convinced that the tide was turning in his favor. He assembled a force of approximately 100,000 soldiers, including Janissaries, Sipahis, and artillery, accompanied by the imperial treasury wagons. His objective was to conquer Transylvania and compel the Habsburgs to negotiate from a disadvantaged position. His adversary was Prince Eugene of Savoy, who had been recently elevated in rank after years of combating the French in Italy. Eugene led a force of about 50,000 imperial troops, many of whom were underfed and inadequately compensated, under firm instructions from Vienna to maintain a defensive posture. Lacking provisions but rich in ambition, he monitored the border, awaiting an opportunity to attack. In August, the Ottoman army arrived at Belgrade and then veered northwest towards the flatlands past Petrovaradin. The Transylvanian insurgent, Emmerich Thokeli, advised the Sultan to bypass Austrian strongholds and spend the winter east of the Tisza River. Mustafa consented, oblivious to the fact that imperial scouts were monitoring his every move. On September 11th, Ottoman engineers started constructing a pontoon bridge near the settlement of Zenta. The cavalry and supply train crossed first, leaving the infantry and the Grand Vizier remaining on the southern bank. Upon receiving this intelligence at midday, Eugene commanded a rapid advance, placing 2 soldiers on each horse and leaving the artillery behind to intercept the enemy while they were crossing. By the late afternoon, Austrian formations materialized on the riverbank, taking the Ottoman operations, which were still incomplete, by surprise. The Tisza River curved like a horseshoe, confining the vizier's forces within rudimentary earth defenses that faced the water. Divided across 2 riverbanks, the Ottoman forces now had no viable escape route. Eugene positioned his infantry at the center with heavy cavalry on both flanks and then charged forward without hesitation. Imperial cannons pummeled the dense encampment, as musketeers assaulted the forward trench in vicious close-quarters combat. An Ottoman counterattack momentarily held up the left flank, but the arrival of fresh Austrian reinforcements shifted the advantage. As the battle intensified, Austrian artillerists identified their crucial objective, the pontoon bridge itself. A handful of precise shots destroyed its central portion, severing the path of retreat and sending men, horses, and carts crashing into the river. Chaos erupted. Countless soldiers leaped into the river wearing armor that made swimming impossible. As night descended, the battlefield grew quiet, punctuated only by the sound of splashing and faint cries from afar. Austrian losses were approximately 700 killed and 1,900 injured, whereas Ottoman casualties were at least 20,000, with numerous accounts citing as many as 30,000. Eugene also seized over 100 artillery pieces, the Sultan's personal seal and sword, and sufficient gold to pay his entire army's wages twice. From a strategic viewpoint, Zenta instantly reversed the course of the war. Habsburg incursions penetrated deep into the Balkans as Ottoman morale disintegrated, and political groups in Istanbul began to call for an end to hostilities. Meanwhile, France had endorsed the Treaty of Ryswick, which allowed Vienna to concentrate its entire military might on the Eastern Front. 2 winters after, The Treaty of Karlowitz was finalized on January 26, 1699. It compelled the Ottomans to surrender almost the entirety of Hungary, Transylvania, and sections of Croatia and Slavonia to the Habsburgs. This treaty concluded the Great Turkish War and signified the first significant territorial concession by the Ottomans in Europe. From that point on, the empire primarily fought to protect its frontiers rather than enlarge them, and the Battle of Zenta became recognized as the very moment that shift occurred.